Okay, good evening, everybody. I'd like to call to order this Committee of the Whole meeting of the Council of the Town of Saugeen Shores and welcome everybody to the Council chambers this evening. We're very happy that you're here. First item is disclosures of pecuniary interest and nature thereof. I'll ask any member if they have a pecuniary interest they'd like to declare. Seeing none, of course, you can declare one anytime if you need to. We have no additions, deletions, or amendments to the agenda. We have no open forum. So that moves us on to delegations, and we have 3 delegations this evening. And our first delegation isn't really a delegation so much as it's a celebration. We're very lucky to have the Bantam girls hockey team with us this evening. We've had a very successful hockey season in the town of Saugeen Shores, and we're very lucky to have one of the successful teams here this evening so we can recognize them. I'm just going to read. We're going to give each of the players and their coaches a certificate of recognition. I'm just going to read what it says so everyone is clear on what they've achieved. And it's awarded to the 2019 Remax Land Exchange Bantam Sea Girls Team on behalf of the town of Saugeen Shores in recognition of outstanding achievement for having won the Ontario Women's Hockey Association Provincial Championships. Congratulations. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to ask the Deputy Mayor to give me a hand. I want to say thanks to the Deputy Mayor for helping to arrange to have the team here this evening. He and I are going to get up. We're going to call each of the players up by name, and I'm going to give them a certificate, and the Deputy Mayor is going to give them a pin, and there'll be an opportunity then for a picture with any parents or anybody who wants to get a picture, and we'll just ask all the players to and coaches to stay up here as we call you up, and then at the end we'll get a group shot, and that'll be that. All right, so here we go. Yeah, that's a good idea. Okay, so that moves us on to our second delegation, and that's John Willits of the Southampton Legion. I guess I'll just start off by reminding our delegations that they are 10 minutes in length, and I know that you are well aware of that, and that you won't be making any overruns, but just in case, I'll give you a nudge in case you get up against that, but I'm sure it'll go fine. So come on up, and Mr. Willits, and thank you for being here. Nope, just push the blue button.
There we go. Is that all right? Testing, 1, 2, 3. Well, thank you. Obviously, you were talking to the BIA because I went a little bit over my 10 minutes with them. But before I start, John, here's your transfer form. Yeah. Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for this opportunity. My name is John Willits, and I am the president of the Southampton Legion. And my message today is really threefold. Quickly, a recap on what's going on with the Royal Canadian Legion in general, a little bit about what's going on at the Southampton Legion, and a little bit about our path forward. And I hit the right button. The Royal Canadian Legion, their mission really hasn't changed over their time that they've been in existence since after World War I. And the mandate there, of course, was to support veterans, but really in community service, their family, and the services that they needed at the time, whether that was hospital, whether that was work at home, whether that was financial assistance. And over time that's evolved, and the community service element of that has maintained and gotten stronger in the areas of youth and education, families and seniors, and of course remembrance. There's 300,000 members of the Royal Canadian Legion and over 1,400 branches, making us one of the largest volunteer organizations in the country. We're quite a philanthropic organization. We're not very good at blowing our own horn, but as you can see, these are last year's figures in terms of the money that's distributed across Canada. This is nothing about the thousands and thousands of volunteer hours that members put in community work. In youth and education, almost $3 million in bursaries, helping children and their families go to post-secondary education. We're probably most known for our art and literature and now video competitions just before Remembrance Day, and public speaking. And the public speaking does pay long-term dividends. I know that both Ben Loeb and Luke both were active participants in their youth in that. At a national level, the Royal Canadian Legion actively involved with the Invictus Games. Operation Santa Claus is where we put together packages for our troops stationed around the world. So at Christmas time, they'll get everything from earbuds to sunscreen to the things that they don't get. And it's the expressions of gratitude that we get back from that are outstanding. It's really something wonderful. Our hospital services, they do everything from us actually purchasing vehicles to moving seniors and people in hospital, between hospitals, for both them and their caregivers. We're mandated by an act of Parliament to advocate for veterans and their families. Now, changing gears here a bit to the Southampton Legion, well, we've been doing pretty well. The Royal Canadian Legion, their membership has slowly decreased since the early 80s. They're going down at a rate of 2 or 3 or 5% per year, depending on where you are, and this is the 1,400. So a couple of weeks ago, I got a call from one of the senior executives in Ottawa, and he says, "John, you guys really did great in 2018 with your membership." And I said, "Yeah, I think we did all right." And he said, "Well, no, you did really good." And I said, "Well, what are you talking about?" And he said, "Well, there's 1,400 legions worldwide. You're number 41. So that puts us in the top 3% of growth. This is in an environment where since 1982 their memberships have been going like this, and ours will be up at least 25% by the end of probably May or June of this year. And that's remarkable. I tried to explain it to the people at the Legion and said, if you put 1,400 dots on 10 sheets of paper, Southampton's branch 155 will be on line 2. And that's quite a jump. So beyond that, we've been doing quite a bit of renovation and revitalization of the Legion. Financial transparency, of course, cleaning it up and painting it and expanding it and opening it up to the community. One of wonderful problems that I had this year on a Tuesday night in the middle of the week in the wintertime, while the Pool League was playing on the Tuesday night, and the Chambettes wanted it for their Tuesday dinner meeting, and there was another private corporate event that wanted it the same, and it was a wonderful problem for an organization to have where in the past they were concerned about their own viability. In terms of community service in Saugeen Shores, over $50,000 to the hospital. We actively partner with the museum and other organizations to provide services and events both for low-income housing and for seniors, as well as individuals at large. And this is an all-year-round event. This isn't a single festival or just a summer thing. This is all year long. We probably run at least two fundraising events a month. Our target is for each one of those to be at least over $1,000, and that goes on 12 months a year. 10,000 hours wouldn't be, for some volunteers, they put between 8,000 and 10,000 hours in a year on that. That's about the same as a full-time job. And if you calculated that out at $25 an hour, that really is something. Youth and education, I think we've bought just about all the instruments at GC Houston. Sports teams, everything from ladies ball teams to the GC Houston basketball uniforms we have. Got some great reviews this year because we sponsored the evening skate on New Year's Eve. And of course you are familiar with the street banners. Veterans and Families and Services, post-traumatic stress disorder, interesting number here. Since the Afghanistan war, numbers vary significantly, but at least the same number of soldiers that we've lost in the Afghanistan war have committed suicide since. That's in Canada. Arguably, some people say it's twice that, and that does not include the people who take their lives slowly through drug and alcohol abuse. Remembrance Day, this is one of my favorite pictures here. I hope you see that out there. One of my favorite people is in that picture, and it's not, no offense to anyone, the two on the right, no, the little blonde lady in the middle, that happens to be my wife there. But now, in Southampton, we don't have a Remembrance Day anymore. We have a Remembrance Week. We have lectures. We had 3 bands and 4 performances. We did school and church lectures. We had poetry readings. We had news articles. Of course, we had the banners out again. And thank you, Don Matheson. We actually had we sponsored a hockey game, which went over very, very well this year. And a little bit, well, I won't bother going into the hockey trivia because we don't have time for that. But so this is Walt Rogers, one of our World War II vets, dropping the puck at that event. This is a shot in front of the Southampton Town Hall. That picture that you see there is a large blow-up of a picture that was taken in March of 1916. 40 of the 80 soldiers that went off to war from our community. And then people forget what a veteran is. We saw Watt there, and this is a veteran as well, of course. This is Company B from Camp Meaford, who recreated that photo. It turned out very well. We're actually scheduling an event where we're presenting both those photos to Camp Meaford in the near future. Remembrance Day went fantastic. Here's some soldiers in front of our cenotaph. There's never been 100 soldiers on the streets of Southampton. There may never be again, but there's actually 104 in that picture. It was a great event. It all kind of came together at the very, very last moment. I didn't get the cannons that I wanted, but we did get the 100 soldiers, and they stayed with us for the day. And one of the most important things that came back to me was it was explained to me how much the young soldiers, a lot of these were brand new recruits, and to get the accolades and appreciation from the members of the community, it made them feel important. It made them realize what an important job that they were doing. And it was just a wonderful expression that I wouldn't have anticipated. Of course, it was wonderful, the sunset ceremony. Many thanks to the Friends of the Flag, who did a great job lowering the flag. Crowds were great, 4 people deep. There was applause, there was cheers, there was tears as we went past our cenotaph here. Now, our cenotaph is probably one of the most prestigious 10 by 10 foot sections in Southampton. The view down our high street past the cenotaph to the flag out to the island with the bird sanctuary on it and the lighthouse is probably for me a quintessential example of the natural and historic heritage that we have here in Canada and particularly in Southampton. That cenotaph is in need of a little bit of repair. The spalding is on the back of it. When it was put up, there was a bunch of other different designs that were made. I've had a chance to go out with Frank Burrows and walk that site. And it's interesting because the cenotaph itself was put up by the Legion using community money, but it's on town land. So we've reached out to the Friends of the Flag and to the BIA and now to you folks to kind of bring you into the group. We want to make sure we renovate and perhaps embellish this strategic piece of property in our downtown core. Here's an example of one community's version of it. This is the Dundas Valley one. It's very similar to the one in Paisley. That happens to be the Vimy Ridge Memorial. And this is an example of one change that was drawn up in the 1970s of a possible change and expansion. So the wall behind the cenotaph, actually you get a chance to improve what's there and put a larger wall up behind as a wall of remembrance. And perhaps we can work with the town and with the other stakeholders to make sure that this piece of property, that means a lot of things to everyone. It's a significant piece of property for the Legion, for the members of the community, for the guests, and obviously for the town itself. And on that, that's the end of my presentation, and hopefully we can get working forward on this over the next few years.
Thank you, Mr. Wells. I'll ask members of the committee if they have any questions or comments the presentation. I just think a couple of things. One, I'd encourage you to work with our staff on the question of the cenotaph. It's good to hear that you've got a group together working on, from a grassroots level, how to make improvements to it. And I'd certainly encourage you to work with the Director of Community Services and others within the administration to talk about how to do that. I think that's a project that's got a lot of merit. And also just say thank you on behalf of the municipality to the Legion for all that you do in our community. Just a huge amount of work is done by our Legion. You know, you've listed it all, and many of us have benefited by the work of your organization, and it's good to hear that Southampton's Legion is growing, and I hope it keeps growing.
Yes, well, we were reached out by both the command in Ottawa and regionally the provincial command. They're asking for our recipe, so we'll be doing some presentations.
Sure, lots of groups would like that recipe. Great. Anyway, thank you very much, Mr. Will.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you.
So the next delegation is from Dan Kelly from about the Hall of Fame. I'm not sure Mr. Kelly is present though. So I guess what we'll do is if he happens to show up at some point through the evening, we may take the delegation, at least during Committee of the Whole. If not, we'll seek to reschedule. So with that noted, we have no public meeting. So that moves us on to report of municipal officers and committees. And 7.1, public notice, a staff report on the 2019 budget amendment. And Sue Murray, the Director of Corporate Services.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. Originally, when the budget was last approved through Council, it had a couple of base assumptions, one being the increase in the county rate and the other that the school board rate would come in at a 0% increase. Last week, we did receive the school board rates, and they actually did decrease by about a 5.29% for a residential rate. So I would ask that Council amend the budget to include another $165,000 to be transferred to the legacy fund, which would then bring in the blended tax rate to a 2.99%.
Okay, thank you. There is a recommendation. The 2019 budget and tax rate be amended to include an additional $165,000 to be transferred to the Legacy Reserve Fund. Questions or comments from members of the committee? The Vice Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll certainly be supporting this recommendation. I think that, by adding $862, almost $1 million into our legacy fund by 2023, I think that fund later on, I think this evening we're looking at a report where we're looking around $10 million in the legacy fund by 2023. And that's a good news story. And I was going to thank our CAO again later. I've done this a couple of times, but I'll do it again. I just think the legacy fund is just a tremendous reserve fund. Whether it be for the new Southampton Town Hall renovation or a new pool in the future, whatever the project might be, this seems to be the way we're going to be able to finance one or two of those larger scale projects. And so I think this is just a smart move, and is one that I certainly support.
Okay, thank you. Other questions or comments from members? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Okay, that moves us then on to 7.2, General Government, and a staff report on the Legacy Reserve Fund and the Director of Corporate Services.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. As Mike mentioned, so this is a report. We have been discussing this legacy fund for a while now without sort of any parameters or guidelines around what it could or could not, shouldn't be used for. So I thought I would bring this to council with just sort of what I would recommend as the funding source going into this reserve fund in the future, and what projects or parameters to put it around so that it can be incorporated into our reserve fund, our reserve policy later on in the year. So within that, there are a few parameters, and I would also ask that council, there are 3 capital projects this year. Although they're under sort of the $2 million limit that I put in this policy, we're supposed to be debt financed through the budget process. I would recommend fund out of this reserve fund so that it leaves us more room going forward and saves us operational dollars going forward over the next few years as well.
Okay, there's a recommendation that the Legacy Reserve Fund be established and designated as a discretionary reserve fund, and that the unfunded capital portion of the Beach House, the extension of the Promenade, and the Lamont Pit purchase projects be funded from the Legacy Reserve Fund. Are there questions or comments from members of the committee? The Vice Deputy Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, I just I support this recommendation as well. It's unfortunate in one sense that we're depleting the legacy fund to a point in year 1, 2, but on the other hand, there's only so many dollars to go around, and these projects have to get paid for. So I think we'll get into full steam ahead in the next year or two with that legacy fund through to 2023 and beyond. So I think it's a very positive move. But one question I had, Mr. Mayor, if I could, the 1.5% rate of return, interest rate of return, Sue, is that, is that a I guess a number that, are we on the conservative side?
Yeah, very conservative, yes.
Like that could, who knows, I guess, with rate of returns, but we could see 2, 3, who knows,
Yep.
right? So that,
I definitely went very conservative.
so it's a conservative number. So that number could, like the 10 million by 2023 could quite conceivably be higher if all goes well with interest rates. Although we don't want them to go too high, I guess, do we? Okay, thank you.
Further questions or comments from committee members? I think that this really lays down the strategy that we've put in place now to actually capitalize, to finance these major capital projects that we've been talking about for a very long time, but have been unable to come up with the break on moving forward on things like a pool or a recreation center has always been cash, fundamentally. Today, sitting here right now, we do not have the cash to do those things, but this is the plan, this is the strategy that gives us the cash, and you can see the schedule there. Everybody can read the timelines, and you can see when we might have the cash to proceed with some of those projects. So this is smart. It's also smart to fund these couple of projects that you've got in here with this fund to avoid paying interest for that $1 million or so worth of projects that we have out there. But it is this is good planning and a good way to look to the future, particularly since our ability to rely, considering our low tax, high income status of our community, our ability to rely on funding from other levels of government or other sources is going to be limited. This recognizes that and takes action in another direction to move the community forward. So it's a good thing. So with that, I'll ask all in favor. Opposed? That's carried. Okay, that moves us then on to 7.3, Infrastructure and Development, and the first one is a staff report on the Port Elgin Standpipe Replacement Award and the Director of Development and Infrastructure.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. For a little background, a new Port Elgin water tower was identified in 2012 by Public Works staff at that time. Staff then brought forward a report in 2014 to apply for provincial funding for replacement of the water tower. We were turned down by the province for that project, and staff then put the replacement of the tower into the 2016 Water Financial Plan. In 2017, we brought forward a recommendation to do the detailed design, and BM Ross was awarded that design. They then tendered the project, and it came in over budget in the fall of 2018, which we then came back to council again and asked for permission to go into negotiation with the lowest bidder. What we have in front of you today is a recommendation to award to K&L Construction. Through those negotiations, we identified cost savings, and we identified deferral of pieces of the project that we will put into the 2019 financial plan as well. Through the report, you can see there were multiple projects that we're looking at securing the additional funds from, prioritizing and changing what we were doing from gas tax and then from the water user rates to be able to afford the new water tower in Port Elgin. So with that, I recommend that we award to K&L.
Okay, we have a recommendation that Council authorizes that K&L Construction Ontario Incorporated be awarded the contract for the Port Elgin standpipe replacement in the amount of $1,986,341 plus applicable HST, and that the Mayor and Clerk be authorized to sign the necessary tender documents. Questions or comments from the committee? We'll start on this side with Councillor Mayette and then come to the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I understand the need for the standpipe replacement, and it's been a recurring theme throughout my entire 5 years on council, and it's going on. But I see where the funding has been drawn from several sources, and I understand that with the price tag coming in higher than what was expected and what was budgeted, that's something that we have to do. But I have a little bit of reservation with regards to using funds that weren't designated for water systems through the water billing, namely the gas tax funding. The gas tax funding, the $400,000 plus another $7,000 in there, is a revenue source that was intended to benefit all citizens of Saugeen Shores, and there's a large portion of Saugeen Shores residents that will not benefit from this water tower because we don't, people that live in rural areas aren't on the water system. So I'm just questioning the appropriateness of using non-water designated funds for a water project.
It's an interesting question. I might just ask the Director, have we used gas tax to fund water or sewer related projects or rate funded projects in the past?
And yes, we have. So our water or our road reconstructions have water components, and those water components can sometimes be funded through gas tax.
But when we're doing a road reconstruction, I understand that part of it is funded from gas tax because we're rebuilding the road and we're repaving the road, and part of it is from the water reserves because we're putting in new water systems. But this is a pure water project being funded through a tax stream that I contribute to, but me and the people that live in the rural areas but don't get any benefit from it. And quite frankly, just because it was done in the past doesn't justify doing it in the future.
Okay, we'll go to the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I have some problems with the project as well, but when it comes down to the environmental assessment and playing with that's a whole different ballgame. I asked our director earlier today about timeline and if would it not be better to wait until we have our master plan done? And you just rephrase for me what your response was for that.
Sure. Through you, Mr. Mayor, the water wastewater master plan is at its 5-year update. So in 2014, it was designed to 2034, and the settlement area boundary is expected to be the same that we're going through the OP for the next review of this water plan. So adding another to 2040, I don't believe the settlement area is going to expand beyond what we have in the OP. So the pressure zones will still be the same. So when it comes to the water tower, it doesn't provide capacity or volume, it just provides pressure. So there's no need in my mind to hold this project up because the pressure zones we need in Port Elgin will not change as a result of that master plan.
So the exponential growth that we're receiving right now, this new tower will be able to handle the 500 houses here and the 300 there and the 200 over here, and plus whatever's happening in Southampton?
So again, and through you, it's not a supply. The water tower does not supply water. It gives pressure. So it's physics, the head pressure in the tower. So the elevations of those new developments is not going to change. So the elevation difference from the water in the tower to the ground where those developments are happening is staying within that area, so the pressure won't change. When it comes to supply, the water wastewater master plan will make recommendations on the reservoir. So we provide supply in Port Elgin by the ground reservoir that's across the street from the water tower, and it may come back with a recommendation to leave it the same, expand it, twin it, or build a completely different system of reservoir. And that is a project that's worth waiting for the recommendations of the water master plan for quantity of water that we'll be storing.
Two more questions. So you estimated it's a minimum 3 to 5 year exercise. So upon approval tonight, should that be granted, you start the process, it'll be 3 to 5 years before completion of the new standpipe?
No, it's the opposite. So if we were to not approve this because I had direction to go back and review alternate technologies, we would be 5 years out. We would need to create a request for proposals, get consultants on board, start the Class EA process, submit through public consultation for a year of that work, of doing broad picture design, then get down to ministry approval, and then get down to detailed design, then tender, and then be able to construct whatever technology came out of that Class EA process. If we award tonight, they can start within 6 weeks, sort of thing.
Thank you. And last question. So our new design, it's smaller than the original? Yes, no?
It's the same.
It's the same?
It's taller, but...
Okay. But it's of a different construction type. It's not a weld. Is it a nut and bolt configuration?
I don't know those details as to the materials in it. I can go back to the project manager and find out. I wouldn't know.
Just looking at the way that some of the water towers around are and stuff like that, it's just interesting to know what we're looking at. As long as we are covered in our water pressure, and being able to meet the needs of everybody that's here in the next 10, 20, 30 years. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Work our way down the table to Councillor Schreider.
Thank you. And through you, maybe a follow-up to Councillor Mayette's question as well with regards to the revised funding sources. There's 4 projects listed on there, maybe 5 projects that you feel that will be under budget. Are those projects complete yet?
So, and through you, Mr. Mayor, the Bruce Road 25 is not complete, but we signed the cost-sharing agreement or recommended that last week. The interlocking brick repair was awarded for that much under budget, but it's not complete yet. Same Underwood was tendered and awarded for significant under budget. That one was done based on, instead of doing larger digs, it was able to do with the back truck. So lots of savings there. And then the Dig Smart software we just chose because we need the money to not go forward with that this year.
Thank you. I think my comments would be, I think it's a little bit risky to count on money when those projects aren't complete yet because we don't know of what the unknowns are when we get into the actual construction of that. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Rich.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. So I just want to go through a little bit of background detail if I can. So that water tower is 40 years of age, or that standpipe is 40 years of age, our current standpipe?
I apologize. I don't know the age of it offhand. I can.
I think it's around that, right? And I remember back, and I should have mentioned this earlier, and it just occurred to me. Dave Burnside did a report to us. And wasn't the projected lifespan of that thing supposed to be originally 100 years? Am I wrong in that? The point I'm trying to make is what's the projected lifespan of the new one, and what's our hope?
So the project team did an analysis. I'm sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor. The project team did an analysis of the 80-year lifespan of this tower. They did a cost benefit of this versus other technologies and found this one to be the best. So 80 years is what they're expecting.
And so, and like I said, I should have researched this better, but I remember Dave talking about a 100-year lifespan for the last standpipe. do we have any guarantee of anything? Like once we put it up, they expect it to last 80 years, and if it does, it does, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. Is that how it works, or?
I'm not sure the warranty from KNL, but I can find out what that warranty would be, but I would not expect a company to warranty something for 80 years.
Okay, further questions from members of the committee? Councillor Carr.
Yes, and through you, Mr. Mayor. I share some of the same concerns as have been voiced here already. My question for starters here, the first one I'd be looking at is the cost savings here. I'm looking at the change in the design of the mixing system. It says for a total cost saving of approximately $170,000. I'm just curious as to what we are losing or what the benefit was in that other alternate system that they had originally tendered on it, or what we'd be sacrificing by doing that.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure the details on the mixing system, but what I do know is that changing the mixing system changed the design in a bit that is why we have the higher tower now, because there was a risk of ice. So by the benefit of the previous mix design must have been that it had a better ability to prevent any ice formation inside the tower. So now our tower will be taller to give freeboard to that ice accumulation.
Yes, and again, through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm just, I guess, curious a bit more on some of the stuff too being brought into this. I know this was brought to the previous council, but I wasn't involved in that one. I guess when we're tendering this and we're replacing the standpipe, does that include the infrastructure as well, like the pumps and the stuff that we feed and we keep the head pressure up with by topping up and all that other stuff, or does this strictly just include the standpipe system itself and none of the infrastructure that supports it?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's everything that the standpipe needs to function. We're going to install this one across the street, so all that infrastructure will be in place before the existing one is dismantled, so that will all be there. The only exception is the infrastructure that's needed to run the reservoir next to it. That stays as is.
Thank you.
Anything further from members? You have the recommendation in front of you with the funding structure, etc., as it is. So I'm prepared to call the question. I'll ask all in favor. Opposed? Wait a second. I'm all in favor, so I can count. Hands high. 1, 2. Opposed? 1, 2, 3. Okay, sir. So 3 opposed. All right, that's carried. Thank you. All right. So that moves us then to report number 2 under infrastructure and development, staff report on reducing litter and waste in Ontario, and the director.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. So Association of the Municipalities of Ontario has been working with a lot of municipalities through this past year on blue box transitioning. When the new government came in, they've put out this discussion paper about litter and waste reduction. I sat in on one of the webinars and listened to this presentation that I've shared in the documents here with you. They are asking that municipalities sign a letter supporting their letter with their comments on the discussion paper. And so I bring that to you for your review and then look for direction to sign such letter.
Okay, we have a recommendation that the Council of Saugeen Shores support the province's goal to decrease the amount of waste going into landfill, increase the province's overall diversion rate, and reduce greenhouse gases from the waste sector, and that Council direct staff to author a letter indicating such support to be mailed directly to the province, copied to Lisa Thompson, MPP, Huron-Bruce. Questions or comments from the committee? Councillor Mayette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I will be brief. I did take some time and read through this report, and I think a lot of the report slants towards larger municipalities and municipalities that don't own their own landfill site. I know in our municipality, and I think Councillor Rich could probably back us up because he's on the Bazawar board, the recycling and waste diversion is an expensive process. Expensive from the point of view that we have landfill space available, but it costs us money to do recycling and diversion. Whereas in some municipalities, like Owen Sound, for instance, that pay to have all of their trash shipped to out of province landfill facilities, every ounce that they can divert is a substantial savings. So, having read through this, I just caution that we need to keep in mind that all of the scenarios that are envisioned in the report don't necessarily apply to our municipality, and we may be asking for something that we don't really need.
Thank you. Further, Councillor Rich.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, if you may indulge me just for a moment, one of the things that I think that we have to be aware of when we're talking about waste diversion is that a lot of times, for example, if you take a Tetra Pak and you divert that waste, it actually transfers it to wherever the recycling facility for a Tetra Pak may be, right? They only really recycle the plastic and a little bit of the metal inside, and all the remaining cardboard ends up going straight to a landfill wherever that recycling plant is. So I think that the key message that we have to make sure that we get out into the community is that the way in which we divert waste is not by buying plastic bottles and recycling them, but by not buying plastic bottles. I think that that's the key messaging that I would like to see more of, other than talking about diverting waste from where it is now and recycling more stuff. I think that we have to reduce and we have to reuse if we're going to make a significant difference in waste reduction, not just waste diversion. So I think that that's a point that really needs to be made.
Yeah, good points. Further comments from members of the committee? No, I think that it's clear that that Councillor Mayette is probably right, that not everything in here is going to apply to us, and possibly not everything in there everyone will, probably we won't all agree with absolutely every one of the components of this, but I think the overall thrust is something that is to the benefit of the municipality if it can be achieved, and I think if any effort by the province to reduce, that they can take to reduce the amount of garbage that's heading toward our landfill site is a benefit to us and something we ought to support. So I certainly am in favor, and hope council will be as well. So I'll ask then, all in favor of the recommendation? That's carried. So I'm going to take a pause in the agenda and head back to the top. We see that Dan Kelly is here, and we're glad that he made it. So we're going to go to our third delegation right now, Mr. Dan Kelly, to talk to us about the Saugeen Shores Hall of Fame. And you just take the podium and push the button there, Dan.
Okay, thank you very much. I thought this was 7 o'clock, so that's just my mistake. That's okay. I thought you all wanted to get to the Leaf game anyway. So, Mayor Luke, council members, thank you very much for letting me have a few minutes of your time. I'm here on behalf of the Saugeen Shores Hall of Fame Committee. Our Hall of Fame has been running since 1999, and we recognize accomplishments throughout our Saugeen Shores community, which is Southampton, Port Elgin, and Saugeen Township. We're sponsored by the Rotary Club. This year we had 12 new nominees that came out of our nomination process, and out of those we're inducting 4 new members into our Hall of Fame this year. So the first one is Shelley Bellamy, and she's part of the organization that started the Special Olympics Central Bruce in 1986. She's been a coach of the Special Olympics sports events for the past 30 years, and she has sent many people on to great accomplishments. And I'm sure you already know these people, but I'm just trying to give you the 10-second version on their 30-minute speech. Hopefully it's not coming. Next one is Randy Miller, and I'm sure everybody knows him. He's with the Saugeen Track and Field Club. He was a teacher in town here for some 30 years. He's been coaching at the Saugeen Track and Field Club for 25 years. He's coached throwing athletes to 500 provincial medals and 56 national championship medals. So quite an accomplishment for some of the people that he's been dealing with. Our third one is Becky Smith, and I'm sure you all know who Becky is, since Mike has just stepped down and Luke has graciously stepped into his position. But Becky was a 3-time national championship in 1994. She won 3 national medals, mainly in hurdles and running. She's a 9-time Ontario championship, and she was an academic All-American in 1997. So she has quite an accomplishment in her own right. The last one we have is Kelly Gribbons, and Kelly's won medals throughout her entire academic career, starting in grade 1 and moving all the way up. She was a member of the 2013 Pan Am Junior team. She was part of the Women's Ontario University Association championship team in 2016 and 17. She was drafted by the Markham Thunder in the Canadian Women's Hockey League, and she's presently playing there for how much longer, we're not sure, but anyway, she's still playing with them. So quite a good accomplishment from them. Our induction ceremony will be held on Thursday, May the 9th. It starts at 7 o'clock at the Rotary Hall here, and everyone is welcome. So anybody that wants to get a ticket, I'll let you hit up Don, since Don's got some tickets for you there, Donnie Matheson, which is also part of our committee here. So hope that you can attend our ceremony and congratulate these deserving inductees. So just wanted to give you a little update on what's going on there. Is there any questions or anything?
Sure, I will ask if any member of the committee have any questions for Dan. I just thank you very much for coming and updating us on that. It's always good to hear about the annual inductions to the Hall of Fame. Some outstanding new inductees plan to go in this year, and I just want to say thanks to you guys and to the Rotary Club for doing that every year. It's a really great thing to have in our community to recognize them, and out in the Plex, it's a beautiful display there that really celebrates those people. So thanks for all the work.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, so that moves us back down the agenda to item 7.5 and the staff report on the renewal of the chicken bylaw. And I just love the chicken bylaw. And it's the Director of Protective Service. Who has the chicken bylaw tonight? It's the Director of Protective Services. The Director.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And it's a bit of a case of what came first, the chicken or the chicken bylaw. And in our case, it was a pilot project that came 2 years ago, and then came the chickens. And since then, we've monitored. Bylaws had very few complaints, only one, and it wasn't even a chicken to blame. That was a rooster. It had been dealt with. The rooster's no longer with us in our urban boundary, and no other problems to report since then. And we are recommending making the chicken program a long-term thing by removing Clause 9.
Okay, very good. There is a recommendation that Bylaw 42-2017 be amended by removing Clause 9. Questions or comments from the committee? You sure? Okay. Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Oh, sorry, opposed? Okay. All right. I apologize for moving too quick. So that moves us then on to communications and petitions for committee of the whole information. There are 7 items there. Are there questions or comments from the committee on any of those items? Okay. So then that takes us on to item 8, which is my report, and I don't think that I have any comments on anything in there. I did just briefly on the Nuclear Innovation Institute information. I did put some copies of the correspondence or the brochure on that in the council kitchen if anybody's interested in taking a look at that. So there's no questions on that. Then the next item items are under report of department heads, and 5 reports there. The first one is an information report on labor shortage and the manager of strategic initiatives.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick update on our labor shortage. So just circling back to say thank you for supporting this event. Thank you for everybody that did attend. We had a very successful turnout, very successful event with significant media coverage as well. Common themes that did come out of this event, which included a panel of experts. We had some local stories. Bruce County brought an update, as well as Jay Posner, our Development Services Supervisor. So we talked about newcomer attraction programs and what it means to be a welcoming community. That was a real common theme and discussion from the event. And just the only other note I'll make is that our next steps are to look at our 2nd annual Economic Development Forum as an opportunity to continue the conversation and have some roundtable discussion with stakeholders, as well as we are pursuing a partnership to do a quantifiable data study to really get a number around labor shortage and what it truly looks like in Saugeen Shores.
Few questions or comments from members. Just thanks again for your work on putting that together. It was a really successful event, and I would say that the County of Bruce last week entered an agreement with Grey County on a program to help to reach out to and accommodate newcomers to our communities, immigrants to our communities. So that's a really positive step forward, I think, and I certainly the information we gleaned here helps to support those conversations when we have them, even at the upper tier, to say these are the things that we need to be doing to help address our labor shortage issue. So it's an ongoing issue, one that we're trying to address on an ongoing basis, and I think this has really given us the starting point in terms of some information that we can use to move forward. So good work. So that moves us then on to item 2, an information report on refreshment vehicles on town land, and the clerk? No? Nothing on that? No questions or comments? An information report on spring cleaning week. Any comments from anybody on that? The Vice Deputy Mayor?
Mr. Mayor, I think it's just timely. I read an article in the, I believe it was Saugeen Times, just today that 350 pounds of litter was picked up on concession 10 alone, all of which were construction materials. And I'd like to speak to the bylaw a little bit later on the agenda, but I think it's just important for staff to send if they haven't already done so, a friendly reminder to our individuals that are in the construction business. We'll do a wonderful job for the community, but I know it's springtime and snow's just disappeared, but there's a lot of litter blowing. Winds come up off of construction sites still, and I think it's just important for a friendly reminder to be sent out to the those firms that we just need a little more help with it. I had another call from an independent grocery store today, and concerned about the amount of litter that's blowing into his lands. So I just think that the materials need to be in some way. I know winds come up and it's hard to control, but they need to be contained a little bit better. So if we could ask staff to send that message off to contractors, I would certainly appreciate.
Yep. No, I think that's an important point and something that we can do. Anything further on spring cleaning week? The Deputy Mayor?
Mr. Mayor, through you along that same line, it's not the small single dwelling projects that are doing this. It's the larger projects. I know in the project that was behind me with 52 houses, 52 homes, the debris just build up and build up. There might be some way that we could have the larger projects, when they start, that we can have some fencing along the roadway, which help catch any of the debris that's blowing along and out of there. That might just be something to look at when we look at the bylaws.
Yep, I think it's a conversation that we can and should have with the development community. I think it's a conversation, frankly, that we need to have with every citizen of the community, frankly, because there's an awful lot of litter. I received an email today about dog waste around the community. Another one of many the concerns I've heard about that. That's many citizens, not just one or two citizens, many citizens doing that. And they shouldn't be. And so I think it's not just one or two people or one or two construction companies. It's every person in the whole community needs to take responsibility for the waste they generate and make sure that it doesn't end up in our parks or on our roadsides or any public land or private lands. So I think that's an important message, and I think every one of us bears responsibility for it, and we should take responsibility. So nothing further on that. There's the volunteer fair information report. Any comments on that? No? And then finally, the information report on the Investing in Canada infrastructure program. Questions or comments on that? I think that's a good report to have and to keep in your back pocket, and particularly the graph. It's a good graph, and it gives you some information on what the future looks like and where we might project our own opportunities with regard to this program. So this is one report to remember and hold on to, I think. There's nothing further, then that moves us on to, that's the end of the agenda, so it moves on to announcements by members, and we'll go to the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's been a busy month around Saugeen Shores. I'd just like to remind Council and members of the public that the high school will be hosting its annual musical, and it's the Music Man. That takes place at the end of May. There's lots of notices around. Tickets are available very shortly, so if you can, get up and see a great production. Our local band, the high school band, has won 5 provincial awards and has been invited to the national competition to submit a submission for their band. They're a fantastic band. Of course, it's the music teacher. She learned everything from me, so I like to say that. Just a little shout out. But they are very talented, and this should be a once-in-a-lifetime performance.
The Vice Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, I attended 2 functions last week, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to comment on. One was the health forum in Owen Sound. I did send council all of like a lot of notes I took there. It was a full-day forum and very enlightening, and a lot of professionals there, doctors, nurse practitioners, physician recruiters, and it was so it was about 80 or 90 people attended, talking about the state of the union in terms of how communities are doing with reducing some patients off of orphan patient lists, and a whole lot of other items were discussed. But I think it's important for us to continue to keep preaching that we do have that orphan patient list of 400 to 500, and the message came out last week that there are a fair number of people that still do not register with Healthcare Connect, and it's important for residents who do not have a family doctor to register with Healthcare Connect, because the names are taken off that list. But I think it also brings to light that we're still not quite there. We're doing well, and I know Councillor Smith's on the Committee on Physician Recruitment team now, and probably is being enlightened by our physician recruiter, and it's a good committee. This forum was intriguing. 12% of our Ontario doctors, according to the report last week, are retiring on an annual basis. 800 students graduating from med school in Ontario every year. 50% moving on to specialized practice. So there's some really interesting components of the forum, and just that we need to continue to preach. It'd be nice to get that extra doctor in our community, get that orphan patient list down to 0. But it was a good forum, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for asking me to attend on your behalf. And the second I wanted to mention, and I know Councillor Mayette will want to talk about this, I want to thank Dave for the great work that you are doing with the fishing club and the down at the with the Lake Huron Fishing Club. There was a stocking program of 500 brook speckled trout last week and 250 brown, and Dave was right there loading them off the tanker truck into the water and did a fantastic job. I think it was about 15 or 20 volunteers, and I attended, and it was pretty enlightening. It was a tour of the hatchery, and it was really it was a good operation down there, Dave, and you deserve a lot of credit. I know you're going to speak to. I don't want to steal your thunder tonight. I just wanted to thank you for the great work that you do down there.
Okay, Councillor Schreiner. Councillor Smith.
Just a further nod to the Earth Week celebrations. The town of Saugeen Shores is in fact hosting in collaboration with Eastlink, a spring cleaning 20-minute makeover on Friday, April 26th at 2 p.m. So just encouraging everyone to take 20 minutes out of their day to get outside, and not unlike the citizens who were reported earlier, collect a significant amount of litter. So I hope we can all take part.
Thank you for that. Councillor Rich. Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to thank the Southampton Residents Association, who sponsored a beach cleanup on Saturday and had 5 people north of the river and 26 south picking up a lot of, I think, 3 tires and a lot of other stuff that they picked up. So thanks to those people who went out and did that.
Councillor Carr.
Mr. Mayor, and I just actually, a couple little things here. The junior fire program is about to start at the fire hall, commencing actually tomorrow night. And as every year, we've started, this will be our 3rd annual breakfast. It's going to be held this year on Saturday, May the 25th. It's going to run from 8 till 12 o'clock. Our breakfast is always by donation only, so that we don't discourage anybody from coming. This year, we're looking at raising money for a new fire extinguisher trainer that we're hoping to purchase before the program this year. And then also, too, just one other things I had read through the minutes, and I do know them personally. I just wanted to recognize Dunlop Fuels for 70 years in business in town. I think that's a big big achievement for a local business to be in business that long and still thriving.
You bet. Councillor Mayette.
Sure, thanks, Mr. Mayor, and thanks to Vice Deputy Mayor Mayette for pointing out the work that we did on the weekend with the fish hatchery. And yeah, there are 750 new fish swimming around in there, and they are available for catching for kids primarily under age 16. And just a reminder, because I was down there and I saw some people fishing, the season doesn't actually open until the 27th, next Saturday, for last Saturday in April. So just a reminder, if anybody's watching, thinking about going fishing, wait till next week. And also the fishing club, it's a great organization. You're right, Mike. And so we do more than just that. Today we spent actually about 2.5 or 3 hours this morning doing a Adopt a Highway project. Our club is recognized with signs, and we adopted the section of the Lake Range Road, so County Road 33, from CAW Road to the town line. So we were going through the ditches, and I don't know how many bags or pounds of trash we picked up, but it was a pickup truck full at the end of the day, end of the morning anyway, and we just dodged the rain by moments getting that done. And we're also one of the great projects that we do is the school hatchery program. So we started with 2 or 3 schools in this area and in Kincardine, and it's grown to 50 schools that have these aquariums that are a program that's sponsored financially by Bruce Power, but they all raise their salmon from eggs up to 10 or 12 grams, and then it's this time of year, around first week of May, when all those schools, usually they have some kind of celebration, and then they take their fish down and they release them into the lake, and it's a great learning program from a biological point of view and from a stewardship of the environment point of view, and it's been super successful, and we still have a waiting list for more schools that want to get on board, and very shortly after that we'll be releasing our I think we've got about 80,000 Chinook salmon, and actually this Thursday we're releasing our 30,000 browns and rainbows are all going out into the lakes and rivers of the area. So it's a lot of fun, and we have a great group of volunteers, and really they do most of the work. I just hang out with them. Thanks.
Okay, I just 2 things I wanted to mention. One, on the 14th, we recognized the volunteers at the Bruce County Museum and Cultural Center. A lot of really great volunteers make that facility operate. No museum operates without volunteers, and the Bruce County Museum has got lots of great volunteers, so I just really wanted to say thank you to all of them. And then on the 16th, a number of us toured around 7 Acres in Kincardine, which was a really great experience, and I wanted to say thank you to them for their hospitality, and also just recognize the amount of work that they're doing, the massive operation that they're building, outstanding business really for our region, one that has a regional effect, one that certainly a number of employees and citizens of our community work at. Saw a number of them while we were touring around. So it's an important business for Saugeen Shores, and we really appreciated the chance to see it. So with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn, moved by the Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Rich. All in favor. We'll reconvene at 1:15 to the hour.